don't think Shevchenko's chin may never be the same.
This is why we have the fights. This is why we actually pay attention to the action.
I gotta wonder, what does he see? He says he sees some holes, he sees some mistakes.
He was able to dominate and really pull Pereira back down to the mat using mat returns.
Welcome to Knockouts Unlimited MMA. I'm your host, Michael Opdyke.
I'm your host, Joshua Burns.
I'm your host, Austin David.
And tonight, we're going to be recapping the main event and the main card from UFC 287. Everybody's here to see the main event, so we're going to start right where the action is. UFC 287, starting out the rematch between Adesanya and Alex Pereira. Obviously highly anticipated, very, very much requested. We had Adesanya coming in, truly a working champ. The man has been with UFC for 4.5 years. He's fought on an average of 3 fights a year since joining the company. He's fought 9 of the top 15 contenders within his weight class. And for the last, I believe, 4 years, every fight he has had has been a championship fight. Obviously, he regained his title with this fight. Austin, take us through some of the action.
Well, early on, we already knew what was going to come. We have, two talented fighters. They've met each other so many times in kickboxing, already once in MMA. They're going to come out, probably feel each other out a little bit, but just by Adesanya's body language, we knew he was going to come and start firing early and often because that was going to be a key to his success. We saw kicks, we saw angles, we saw changes of stances. They were both trading nice leg kicks at first, really getting a nice feel out to each other. I would say at the end of the first round, it was pretty close. And going into the second, I think both fighters were probably feeling pretty confident at that point because both, I think, his game plans were working as planned.
Absolutely. And Josh, it looked like the collar tie and clinch work really kind of became key for Adesanya in this fight.
Yes, it did. Being that they already knew each other, they knew what each other possessed, I didn't think it would be too much difference in this fight from the other fights they've had. I was looking to see how much confidence Adesanya had going into this fight, what he was going to do, as he was the person that came up defeated in the last fight. And Adesanya came out and he was aggressive. He did what he had to do, but he showed a lot of openings in Pereira game. Pereira is one that sits back. When he punches, he's punching hard. He's striking to knock you out. But when you return fire, he covers up. He never tries to strike within those punches that or those strikes that you're administering. And that, I think Adesanya saw that within, he took notice of that within the previous fights they had. And he actually compromised on that. And that was very good in Adesanya's defense.
To your point on that, when Adesanya would throw a straight punch, whether it was his lead or his rear, he would leave it out, almost creating a touch control, and then follow up with a second straight punch.
Now, I agree, he would do that. Yes. He definitely did that, and I think that threw Pereira off a little bit. But again, because he was reluctant to fight with Adesanya and exchanges, he kind of stood back, blocked things. He blocked, kept the high guard, and waited for Adesanya to finish. And Adesanya, he would punch within his punches. Within Pereira's punches, Adesanya would throw strikes. And that is what caused him to land the shots that he needed to land.
Certainly. And as Austin, you were saying earlier, those leg kicks, we saw Pereira go back to them. He was successful with them in the first fight. He started off this fight thundering them through. And we saw Adesanya's leg buckle at one point.
Absolutely. I think Poatan, his hands of stone, and obviously legs of stone, he got through a few times, and then that second round, I think he smelled a little blood, and that's when we actually did see him come forward, and he's actually finished fights most other times with Adesanya in that same predicament where he feels that he's hurt and he goes in and lays the hammer, usually against the cage or the ring. And this time Adesanya was ready for it. He came in and delivered a ridiculous amount of hard punches, and he said enough. and ended up coming with his own counter punch in the night.
What do we want to see next from Adesanya? Does he fight Whitaker again? Does he fight Duplessis if Duplessis is able to beat Whitaker at UFC 290?
I think so. And I think the same thing with Poatan having Israel's number up to this point, and Israel having Whitaker's
His number as well?
having his number as well. That it would make sense if he keeps winning. There's no way anyone can deny him another title shot. I don't think anybody would give a thumbs down to see him run it back again.
Josh Pereira, you mentioned that he doesn't throw punches in between other people's punches.
Yes.
What do you want to see him do to improve his game?
I want to see him improve by working on reacting to strikes that are coming at him. Once he builds that, then he will be deadly, because we know he has the power. We know he has the striking ability. We know he's strong. But what good is that strength going to do when you're getting hit and then you don't fire back? He has no counter game. We want to see him have some counter strikes within that. We saw Adesanya, he let him throw punches and he came in between his strikes. And that's what you need to do to be an all-rounded fighter.
Certainly. Well, that was certainly an exciting and thunderous fight. But now we're going to move on to the co-main event. This is a red-hot division, the welterweight division. Last time we talked about Leon Edwards defeating Usman and gaining the title. This time we're talking about Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. Now, Masvidal came into this fight very confident. Burns, obviously, a very capable competitor. Again, looking for fireworks within this. Josh, I'm going to go over to you first. Talk us through a little bit of the striking.
Well, first I want to say, what fight does Masvidal never comes into confident? He's always confident. This is a man who reeks confidence. He comes in, he looks to do a job, but he has been in UFC for quite some time now. And I think his better days are behind him. But striking-wise, he did not do what he needed to do as far as he didn't show that hunger. Like, he wanted to go out there and win this fight. He didn't show that desire. I didn't see that sense of urgency from him. I saw a lot of, especially when he was taken down, I think Burns had 6 takedown attempts, 4 was successful. I didn't see Masvidal try to do anything really from that. Basically, right now, Masvidal is just a gatekeeper as it stands. But we know that any given time he can land good shots. But I did not see it in this fight. I saw Masvidal being a Masvidal of old, not a useful Masvidal that wanted to go in there and earn the victory.
Sort of a Masvidal who had lost a step, if you will.
Yes.
Now, Austin, obviously, Gilbert Burns, a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's put together the wrestling. He's put together the striking. Let's talk through some of that grappling that took place, because it was beautiful in this fight.
Absolutely. Gilbert Burns, he really does a great job of setting up his takedowns. He's very patient. When you're going against a striker, and a striker that has as good as takedown defense and counterattacks against a wrestler who's going to be shooting for your legs, he really made it a very good point to use lateral movement, switching of stances, and nice shots to get respect from Masvidal, and that's how he was able to enter into the legs, either clasping under the rear to make a nice skying double to land him flat on the mat into perfect position, or he was able to take the shot to the back attack and come out with a mat return. And he did it multiple times in the fight. They were all set up very beautiful, and he was also able to finish up with nice peppering hammer punches from the top position.
Well, Josh, as you alluded to, Masvidal's better days are behind him. We saw him retire in the cage afterwards. And Austin, normally I'd say, what's next for Burns? But we know that Burns has a quick turnaround against Bilal Muhammad on May 6th. So that'll be exciting. That'll be at UFC 288, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But for now, we're going to go to a commercial break. But make sure to come back and watch the rest.
Take me away, somewhere nice, somewhere that I can go.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back. We continue down the main card from UFC 287, going right into Font versus Yanez. Now, this was going to be an interesting fight. Font is obviously the veteran coming in on a 2-fight losing streak. Yanez, the younger fighter, looking to make a name for himself. Up to this point in his UFC career, Yanez had won every single fight by either TKO, KO, with the exception of one going to decision, but even that fight, one fight of the night. Austin, we knew fireworks were going to happen in this. How great was this fight?
Man, absolutely loved it. Every second of it, because it was literally only seconds. I'm talking for a bantamweight type of weight class. You expect some pretty hard punches from some of the UFC, top tier guys, but these two have amazing power, amazing striking skills. Yanez's boxing is off the chain. You have Rob Font, who stays in it with anybody. He looks like his hands are about the size of about a 300-pound person. And when they land, it sounds like a 500-pound mule kick. It was fireworks off the start. They got right after it, digging into each other, into the body, into the head, and it ended up being Rob Font's night.
Yeah, for those, and I agree with you, for those lighter weight classes, you usually see a lot of action in there, but you see longevity of the rounds. You usually see a longer fight, but this was great that it ended so early because you got to see the dynamic power and you got to see the dynamic skill set coming from these guys. When you think of bantamweights, stuff like that, that lighter weight class, you're thinking, oh, we're in here, it's going to be action, but we're going to see a lot of fundamentals in there. We're going to see a lot of things. You don't expect someone to go out there and end the fight that quickly. And it was amazing. It was great to watch. Good, entertaining fight. I loved it.
Absolutely. I think for me, one of the interesting parts was, Austin, as you said, Yanez, very clearly a boxer, very solid with his jab. Rob Font displayed his own solid jab as well.
Yes.
But Yanez seemed more confident and more competent with just the straight boxing. I think the key to Font's victory were the collar ties, where he was able to mix in those uppercuts and knees. And like we saw, ultimately landed that uppercut that finally finished the fight for him.
He used everything he had in his repertoire. He used it, and it was a good victory for him. Very good. I loved it. Like I said before, I loved it.
Certainly. The next fight down the card was Holland versus Ponzinibbio. Holland coming in off a bit of a spotty record, having fought Khamzat Chimaev and Wonderboy Thompson, taking a bit of a gentleman's agreement not to go for takedowns in the Thompson fight, which seemed a bit ill-advised. And then Ponzinibbio, who's also long in the tooth of the UFC. This was, again, another exciting fight, Austin.
Oh, I mean, it's a wow type of effect when you see these two gentlemen enter the octagon. Like you alluded to, Kevin Holland is always active. He's willing to fight anybody in the world. I think if you would threw him a heavyweight, he'd be like, okay, let's do it.
Well, he's big mouth.
And this is tomorrow.
He's big mouth. He's big mouth.
I mean, he is... The best thing about him that through his growing process is, like Daniel Cormier had alluded to, he usually talks through his fight. He's actually honed in through the 5 minutes of each round. He gets his talking in between the rounds now, and it's all business. It was for this fight. An amazing diversity of striking, kicks, hooks, nice straights coming down the pipe, and able to catch legs, throw back fists. They were coming from everywhere, and they were early and often, and not to mention the legs kicks that he absorbed, and just showing his overall toughness.
Yes. You did see good skills in there. You saw very good skills. You did see Holland do exactly what he was supposed to. And I said, the guy can punch. The guy can punch. He hits you and he hurts you. And that's what we saw at the end of that fight. With that left hook was devastating.
I think what was interesting to see was the difference in the approach once they caught the kick. We saw Holland land both of his knockdowns off of kick catches.
Exactly.
The first one came from Ponzinibbio catching Holland's kick and not immediately countering, where, as Austin, you said, he landed that beautiful back fist. And then finally, we saw the fight-ending knockdown start where Holland caught a low round kick from Ponzinibbio, immediately threw a cross, and then followed up with that beautiful hook.
But if you actually paid attention to that, when he threw that hook, he actually took 2 steps in. He took one, the first step. He realized he wasn't at the right distance. Then he hopped in again, and then that's when he launched it. Good ring awareness to where you at to unleash that punch, and he threw it right over the dropped hands of Ponzinibbio.
Certainly. Well, the final fight at this main card was a sprint of the fight in that first round. I'm talking Rodriguez versus Rosas Jr. Austin, my goodness, the wrestling exchanges, the chain wrestling along the fence. How did you not love this fight?
I mean, 18-year-old, young teenage phenom in Raul Rosas Jr. He has been displaying some amazing grappling over the course of his young UFC career. Coming into, I had an idea that Christian Rodriguez was going to be able to hang a little bit, and I was really interested to see how he was going to deal with it. Well, composure, technique, keeping calm, and using sound fundamentals in his defenses, he was able to defend most of the attacks that Rosas, even when he was in deep water and very tight predicaments, he found a way to come out of this situation and not only come out on top, but come out into a position where he was able to land punches, elbows, and he was always nicking away at Rosas through the entire time, and eventually wore him down to where he was the for sure winner.
Certainly. I think one of the things that was interesting was watching the naked double legs that he would take. Almost as if the second he hit the center of the ring, he felt the need to try and start taking a penetration shot, and you would see his head just go in like an airplane trying to land at the hips. And as you've said, in any wrestling class that I've taken with you, change your level and then penetrate.
You definitely don't want to be the plane coming down. You want to be the plane taking off when you're shooting a shot, especially against a veteran like Christian Rodriguez. Rosas, I think he felt so confident that he was going to be able to drag this to the canvas and control Christian that's all he thought about the entire fight was getting him to the canvas. But every time that he was shooting, if he was getting into his takedown, Christian was just doing a very good, calm and composed position, and he was able to fight out of it. Or, like you alluded to, he was able to stuff these takedowns right off the bat, and I think it really hurt morale in Rosas' game that night.
Now, Josh, obviously we're wrapping up. We've got just a little bit of time on the segment. Tell us, what do you want to see from Rosas to improve his game?
I want to see him calm down. I want to see him calm down. He's young. He's a young kid. He has a lot of energy, but he needs to calm down, relax a little more in the octagon, and just let his fundamentals take control. You don't have to be in a hurry to win the fight all the time. Let everything come. Yes, let everything come together. Let the game plan run its course. That's why you have a game plan. You have a start to finish. He just has go in him. That's that 18-year-old youthness that he has. And that's that ability the ability for him to actually process everything from start to finish in the fight isn't quite there yet. And so I would like to see him work on that.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for the main card. But now we're going to throw it over to Wendell Martin with high anticipation.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. So, guys, look, we got Triple C. Triple C is coming back. It's been a while. It's been a long time. I haven't seen him in a while. But now here's the thing, all right? Because this is what I'm wondering. Triple C versus Aljo set for UFC 288. I haven't heard much on it. I got to wonder why. I mean, Triple C, he has been active, right? Henry Cejudo's been out there. He's been letting people know he's the king of cringe still. He's bringing the cringe. We're loving it. But normally we hear more press from the UFC themselves. Why haven't we heard it? I don't know. Now, this is a fight that you got to wonder, what's he going to be like? Because when guys go on retirement, you know what happens, right? They get out there, they're living life, they're enjoying the family, they're enjoying the food. Things are great. But, now I will say this, he's been very, very active. He helped out John Jones. He's been helping out Zhang Wei Li. He helped out Yuri Prochazka. He's been in there. He's been in the gym. He's been coaching. He's still been on it. Now, he's been in the background, in the shadows, so we don't really know how's he going to do. And we just learned how good Aljo is. I mean, do you realize when he fought Peter Yan, right? He goes in there and he was getting it handed to him, right? He was losing the fight. Then all of a sudden, Yan throws a knee, disqualified, and that's how he wins. Now, you can call me a liar. I won't mind. But I was one of the ones who actually believed that Aljo was better than what he really showed during that fight. You know, he said he was dealing with some injuries. And, you know, of course we hear it all the time. We're like, sure, an injury. Okay. But for some reason, I believed him. He just didn't seem like the same type of fighter. So then he goes in there on the rematch, and he does so well in the first 3 rounds that he takes his foot off the gas, backs off, because he knows he's got it in the bag. So now we're learning. We're finding out, how good is Aljo? But now we got to ask ourselves, how good is Henry Cejudo? Does he still have it? He's still been active. We saw the John Jones experiment. The John Jones experiment went great, right? But John Jones was actively ready. He was working through things. He was saying, you know what, guys, I'm coming back to heavyweight. It took so long, we got to a point where we didn't really believe John Jones. We're like, sure, John, you're coming back, okay. And then so happened, he came back, he did awesome things, right? So now we look at Henry Cejudo. Cejudo says, look, I'm ready to come back. I've been helping out these guys. They all retained their belts or won a new belt. So, looking forward to it. UFC 288. Check it out. Let's see what's going to happen. And back to you, Mike.
Thanks so much, Wendell. Truly excited to see that fight. For everybody out there that's watching, this has been Knockouts Unlimited MMA. I'm your host, Michael Opdyke.
I'm your host, Joshua Burns.
I'm your host, Austin David.
And until next time, keep watching.
This episode of Knockouts Unlimited MMA was brought to you by the Blue Planet Media Group.